The year 2024 was a turbulent one for the video game industry. It was a year marked by significant upheaval and unexpected challenges that left both gamers and industry insiders reeling. The landscape of gaming, which had been thriving and expanding for years, suddenly seemed to hit a wall. Headlines were dominated by stories of delays, cancellations, and disappointing releases. The excitement that usually surrounded new game announcements was replaced by skepticism and frustration. Gamers and industry experts alike noted a decline in the quality and quantity of new game releases. This wasn't just a minor dip, it was a noticeable drop that affected the entire ecosystem. Forums and social media were flooded with complaints about buggy launches and lackluster gameplay. Industry experts held roundtable discussions trying to pinpoint the root causes of this decline. Was it the pressure to meet unrealistic deadlines? Or perhaps the increasing complexity of game development was taking its toll? Big-budget titles failed to meet expectations, leaving many feeling let down and disillusioned. Games that had been hyped for years turned out to be underwhelming, with many players feeling that they had been misled by marketing campaigns. Negative reviews became the norm rather than the exception, and the trust between developers and their audience began to erode. The disappointment was palpable, and it wasn't just confined to a few high-profile flops. It was a widespread issue that affected many of the year's most anticipated releases. The excitement for new releases seemed to dwindle as players grappled with unfinished games, disappointing gameplay, and a lack of innovation. Many games were released in a state that felt incomplete, with players encountering numerous bugs and glitches. The sense of wonder and discovery that had once been a hallmark of new game releases was replaced by a sense of trepidation. Would the game work as intended? Would it live up to the hype? These were questions that players found themselves asking more and more frequently. This downturn wasn't limited to player sentiment. The ripple effects were felt throughout the industry. Game shops reported lower foot traffic, and gaming events saw a decline in attendance. The enthusiasm that had once driven the industry forward seemed to be waning, and the economic impact was becoming increasingly apparent. Several high-profile game studios faced layoffs, indicating deeper financial troubles within the industry. These layoffs were not just numbers on a spreadsheet, they represented the loss of talent and creativity that had been the backbone of the industry. The news of studio closures and downsizing sent shockwaves through the community, raising concerns about the sustainability of the current business models. The once booming world of game development seemed to be contracting, leaving many to wonder about the future of gaming. The optimism that had characterized the industry in previous years was giving way to uncertainty. Developers and players alike were left questioning what had gone wrong and what could be done to turn things around. The question on everyone's mind was clear. What was causing this downturn? Was it a temporary setback, or did it signal a more profound shift in the industry? Theories abounded, but concrete answers were hard to come by. Were developers out of touch with what players wanted? Had the rapid pace of technological advancement outstripped the ability of studios to keep up? Or was it something more fundamental, a disconnect between the creators and their audience? Had the industry become too focused on profits over passion projects? The balance between artistic vision and commercial success had always been a delicate one, but in 2024, it seemed to have tipped too far in favor of the latter. The answers, as with most complex issues, were multifaceted. It wasn't just one thing that had gone wrong, but a combination of factors that had created a perfect storm of challenges. To understand the full scope of the problem, we turn to a valuable tool for gauging player sentiment and habits: Steam Replay. This platform provided a wealth of data that could help shed light on what players were experiencing and what they wanted from their gaming experiences. By analyzing this data, industry leaders hope to find a path forward, one that would restore the excitement and innovation that had once defined the world of gaming. Steam, the world's largest online gaming platform, offers a yearly feature called Steam Replay. This feature provides individual users with a detailed summary of their gaming habits throughout the year. More importantly, it aggregates this data to paint a picture of broader trends within the gaming community. Steam Replay 2024 revealed some surprising insights. For one, it became abundantly clear that gamers were not flocking to new releases as enthusiastically as in previous years. Instead, a significant portion of playtime was dedicated to older, more established titles. This data served as a wake-up call for the gaming industry. It highlighted a growing disconnect between the games being produced and the experiences players were seeking. To understand the magnitude of this trend, let's delve into the specific numbers revealed by Steam Replay 2024. The statistics from Steam Replay 2024 painted a stark picture of the gaming landscape. The data revealed some surprising trends that have significant implications for game developers and publishers. A mere 15% of total playtime on the platform was dedicated to games released in 2024. This is a stark contrast to the expectations set by the gaming industry, which often hypes new releases as the next big thing. This number stood in stark contrast to the playtime dedicated to older titles. Games released in previous years continued to dominate the charts, capturing the attention and time of players far more effectively than the latest offerings. Games released between 1 and 7 years ago accounted for a significant 47% of playtime. This suggests that players are finding more value and enjoyment in slightly older games, which have had time to mature and receive updates. This suggested that players were finding enjoyment and value in games released within the past few years, but the interest in brand new titles was waning. The reasons for this could be manifold, ranging from the quality of the games to the marketing strategies employed. Even more striking was the fact that games over 8 years old, considered classics by many, accounted for 37% of total playtime. These older games have not only stood the test of time but have also built a loyal fan base that continues to engage with them. This indicated a strong preference for familiar experiences, established franchises, and games that had stood the test of time. Players seem to be gravitating towards games that offer a sense of nostalgia and reliability. These numbers pointed to a clear trend. Gamers were not as captivated by new releases as they once were. This could be due to a variety of factors, including the saturation of the market, the quality of new games, or even the economic climate affecting purchasing decisions. To understand why, we need to examine some of the high-profile failures that contributed to this shift in player behavior. These failures have not only disappointed players but have also eroded trust in new releases, making gamers more cautious about where they invest their time and money. In the ever-evolving world of video games, not every highly anticipated release hits the mark. Sometimes even the biggest names in the industry fall short of expectations, leaving fans and critics alike disappointed. This chapter delves into some of the most notable high-profile failures in recent years, examining what went wrong and the impact these missteps had on the gaming community. The year 2024 was marked by several high-profile game releases that failed to live up to expectations. Despite the hype and anticipation, these games struggled to deliver on their promises, leading to widespread disappointment among gamers. The excitement that had built up over months, sometimes years, quickly turned into frustration and disillusionment. These failures contributed significantly to the overall decline in playtime for new releases. Gamers who had eagerly awaited these titles found themselves turning away from their screens, disheartened by the lackluster experiences. The anticipation that had once fueled their enthusiasm was replaced by a sense of betrayal and skepticism. Gamers, it seemed, were becoming wary of investing time and money in games that promised much but delivered little. The repeated cycle of hype followed by disappointment was taking its toll. Players were no longer willing to blindly trust marketing campaigns and pre-release trailers. They wanted proof of quality before committing their hard-earned money and precious time. One such example was Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. This game, which had been highly anticipated due to its association with a popular franchise, failed to meet the lofty expectations set by its marketing. The initial excitement quickly faded as players encountered numerous issues and shortcomings. Despite an expansive marketing campaign and the backing of a well-known franchise, the game was met with lukewarm reviews and struggled to maintain a player base. The disconnect between the game's promotional material and the actual gameplay experience left many feeling misled. The game's inability to retain players was a clear indicator of its failure to resonate with its audience. Its reliance on repetitive gameplay loops and microtransactions left a sour taste in the mouths of many. Players felt that the game prioritized monetization over providing a fulfilling and engaging experience. The repetitive nature of the gameplay, combined with the constant push for microtransactions, made it difficult for players to stay invested. Another notable disappointment was Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Fans of the beloved franchise were excited for a new installment, but their hopes were dashed by a game that seemed to stray too far from its roots. The changes made to the core gameplay and story elements alienated longtime fans who had been eagerly awaiting a return to form. Fans of the beloved franchise were excited for a new installment, but their hopes were dashed by a game that seemed to stray too far from its roots. The changes made to the core gameplay and story elements alienated longtime fans who had been eagerly awaiting a return to form. The game's departure from what made the series special left many feeling disconnected and disappointed. Controversial design choices and a lack of polish alienated core players, driving them back to older entries in the series. The game's technical issues and unrefined mechanics were glaring, making it difficult for players to immerse themselves in the experience. As a result, many chose to revisit previous games in the series that had set a higher standard. These failures, along with others, highlighted a growing trend of prioritizing spectacle over substance. Developers seemed more focused on creating visually impressive games, rather than ensuring a deep and engaging gameplay experience. This shift in priorities was becoming increasingly apparent and frustrating for the gaming community. Gamers were tired of empty promises and unfinished experiences. The repeated cycle of hype followed by disappointment was taking its toll. Players were no longer willing to blindly trust marketing campaigns and pre-release trailers. They wanted proof of quality before committing their hard-earned money and precious time. They craved well-crafted games that respected their time and intelligence, regardless of release date. The demand for quality over quantity was growing louder, and developers who failed to heed this call risked losing the trust and loyalty of their audience. In the end, it was clear that gamers valued substance and meaningful experiences above all else. The decline in player engagement with new releases had a ripple effect throughout the gaming industry. Game studios, facing financial pressure and uncertainty, were forced to make difficult decisions. Layoffs became increasingly common, impacting the livelihoods of thousands of talented developers. Adding to the industry's woes was the looming presence of successful older games. These titles, often available at discounted prices, offered hundreds of hours of engaging gameplay. Competing with such established experiences proved to be a daunting task for new releases, especially those that failed to innovate or capture the magic of their predecessors. This created a challenging environment for game developers. They were tasked with creating experiences that could stand out in a crowded market, all while navigating financial constraints and the ever-present pressure to deliver groundbreaking hits.